Any engineers here would understand what I'm talking about. But I turn that around. What happens if you don't measure? Then you won't be able to control. All control starts with measuring. So a wonderful way of letting go is stopping all this measuring. Who's the best meditator in this room? Who's the worst meditator in this room? I think most of you identify with the latter rather than the former. How can you measure yourself? Was your last meditation a good meditation or a bad meditation? Why do you measure these things? Can you really say there's a good meditation or a bad meditation? How about stopping all this good and bad measuring? When you stop measuring in terms of good and bad, you'll understand what we mean by this is good enough. Or if you really like, this is bad enough. Whichever way, when you stop measuring, how can you aspire for anything? How can you reach out for anything? When you stop measuring, there's an automatic letting go. Really, do you know what is a good meditation or a bad meditation? My first teacher told me there's no such thing as a bad meditation. So that way, are you ever disappointed? Of course not. When you don't compare yourself to other people, you're not measuring yourself against others. Are you not free of ego? The problem with human beings is we measure ourselves against others. From the time we were in school, who's the smartest, who's the prettiest, who's the strongest? We get into competition. And that competition, when we measure ourselves against others, that gives rise to a lot of suffering. Especially when we measure, we have competition, we're always trying to prove ourselves. And because we're proving ourselves, we're always trying to impress. I found out something very wonderful when I was a young monk. I heard this saying, which was so true to life. And it was one of these sayings which got rid of so much suffering in my life. It said that when you're in your 20s, you're very concerned what other people think of you. And it's very true. You look at any young people here, they have to have smart hairstyles, good fashion, designer clothes. They speak in this youth speak, which adults don't understand at all. It's cool. Girls want to be pretty. Boys want to be smart. They're always really concerned what other people think of you. When you're in your 40s, I think you can appreciate this, you get what's called self-confidence. You don't care what other people think of you. You've got confidence. When you're in your 60s, you finally find out that people weren't thinking about you anyway. They're all thinking about themselves. So wasn't that wonderful to find out when you're young that people don't think about you, they all think about themselves. So that means you can let go of trying to impress somebody else. Stop measuring yourself. Just be yourself. You can let go. So when we don't try and be successful, then we are successful. When we don't try to impress, we are impressive because we relax and be ourselves. When you don't try to be successful in meditation, then meditation is successful. Now do you understand what letting go is all about? Stop doing all this struggling business. Allow yourself to be. Allow the moment to be. Allow the meditation. Stop measuring it all the time. When there's no measuring, there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. When you don't measure or compare, there's an actual letting go. All time. How long have we been going on this talk? Just one moment, because I'm not measuring the time. Is this a good talk or a bad talk? Are the people in the back going to stand up with these little cards? 5, 4, 2, like in the Olympic Games? No. Am I going to give you a report card at the end of this retreat? No. Those of you who've been in the interviews, have I criticized you? Have I measured your progress? Whatever you said to me, my meditation is terrible. I've been sleeping all the time. I said, well done, excellent. Some people have said they've got these wonderful nimittas. I said, well done, excellent. I haven't been measuring you at all, because I've been letting you go, freeing you. Too often we put so many constraints upon ourselves, we hinder our progress. Your progress, you are just like little flowers, little seedlings. You're growing at your own rate. And my job is to protect you, to leave you alone, to let nature happen, to let the sunshine open up your lotus, to see your jewel in the heart, to see the source of things. That's my job, is just to cultivate you. But my first teacher, meditation teacher, told me that when he was very young, in Thailand, his father gave him seeds to plant in the garden. He was only about 6 or 7 years of age. So he put those seeds in the garden and he watered them every day. After 1 week, because he was only about 6 or 7 years of age, he became very impatient because he couldn't see anything happening. He asked his father, said, Father, I've been watering them for 6 days and nothing's happening, they've all died. His father said, no, son, they've germinated, they're probably growing under the ground, but you can't see them. Just like many of you, you've been coming to the interview and say, nothing is happening. I've been sleepy since the time I came here. My mind has been restless. And I'm trying to tell you, there's a seed growing inside there. It's almost at the surface. You're going to see something happening soon. Let it go. And fortunately, he believed his father. I hope you believe me and stop messing around. And sure enough, the next day, so a little seedling coming above the ground, a little green shoot. He was so excited he watered it twice a day. Just like you, when you start really getting some results in the meditation, you get here early in the morning, late at night, you really want to get into it. Water it twice a day. And sure enough, it grew. It was about 2 inches high when he really lost his patience. He decided to stretch the flowers to make them grow quicker. He stretched every flower to try and make it grow quicker, and he killed every one of them. Do not stretch your meditation. Do not try and pull it faster than its nature will grow. Just the same as you. Don't force your children. Your job is to nurture your children, to let them grow, let them be, let nature happen, not to force it. You are on this journey of nature. It doesn't go according to your schedules, it goes according to nature's schedules. Some of you will meditate very successfully, very quickly. And you think, why me? Why have I gone so quickly? Just some flowers are like that, that's all. It doesn't make them better than others. Some people go more slowly. The ones who go fast into deep meditation or fast into enlightenment, they get very peaceful very quickly. But they don't have much wisdom because they don't have much experience of the path on the way. It's like when you go on a journey and you go to the destination on a direct course. You know the destination, but you don't know too much about the journey. When you get lost down this side street, when you get lost down that side street, you know much about the path. That's why when people take me anywhere, I love it when they get lost. If they take me straight from the airport to Champaka Buddhist Lodge, I don't get to see anything of PJ or KL. But when they get lost, I get a free sightseeing tour. So when you get lost on the path of meditation, you learn a lot about the territory. You become very wise. So even if it takes a long time, it doesn't matter. You learn a lot on the way. So that way you can look upon your meditation just like nurturing a flower, which is going to grow at its own rate according to cause and effect. If it grows slowly, you're going to become more wise. If you're going to grow quickly, you'll have less suffering. It doesn't really matter. Both ways you're a winner. And both ways you eventually take your place in the garden of enlightenment like everybody else. So your job is just to nurture, not to do the meditation. It happens despite you. In fact, the more you get out of the way, the quicker it happens. It's called letting go. So stop measuring your progress. Stop even measuring good or bad. When there's no good, when there's no bad. In the meditation, I'm not talking outside the meditation. I'm not telling you to give up your precepts. Not like that fellow who said, Ajahn Brahm, let go and have sex. Let go and take a glass of wine. Come on, let go, let go, let go. That's stupid, let it go. But in the meditation, see how much you can abandon. Let go of control. And you will find everything will get still and peaceful very quickly. This is how we meditate. This is how we get into deep states. This is how we see the Dhamma. This is how we become free and become enlightened. In life, we let go of things we can't change, just like Howard Macmillan. We let go of the past. We let go of what people say about us. We let go to be free and happy. In meditation, we let go even further, to be completely liberated. That's called the path of letting go. So, that finishes the talk for this evening. Now, are there any questions? Yeah, go on. I can let you go now if you want to go home. Any questions about this evening's talk? Or about anything else? It doesn't have to be about letting go. Any questions from upstairs? I can see you up there. Hi. You can wave. You waving? Yeah, you're waving. Thank you. Who's going to... Yes, the first question, yes. Can your heart open to the mind? Can Mara what? Can Mara do what? Mara, what opens to Mara? Open your heart to Mara. It's a bit dangerous. It's just like saying to the burglar, the door of my house is open to you. Yeah, I would do that if I was you. No, it's... Sometimes I think I see what you mean, is that if you give Mara loving kindness, compassion, then of course it's... Because compassion is the opposite of actually controlling. It's amazing just if you give kindness to other people. This is, you know that story where I got that saying, opening the door of your heart. It came from my father, who instead of wanting to control me, gave me loving kindness instead. And the reason he did that, I didn't tell the full story in the book, but many of you may know this story. The reason my father was such a loving man who told me when I was a 16-year-old, no, not 16, about 13-year-old boy, whatever you do in life, son, the door of my heart will always be open to you. It was because his upbringing was an upbringing of abuse. He was brought up in Liverpool before the Second World War, when there was the Depression, the Great Depression, in not just the US, but throughout the whole of Europe. It was a time of the general strike in UK. Many, many people lost their jobs. And there was great poverty throughout everywhere at that time in the 30s. And so my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, was a plumber in Liverpool. And it was such a dead-end job at that time that my paternal grandfather would come home every evening drunk, would take off his belt, and he'd whip any child who actually came close for no reason whatsoever. And having beaten the kids, then was set upon his wife, my paternal grandmother. Please excuse this language, but this is what my father would always say. He called his father, my paternal grandfather, a bastard. I need to say that because it tells you how my father viewed his physical abuse, his emotional abuse when he grew up. He hated that man. But every time he was on the end of a lashing, he reminded himself, or he made a determination, if ever I survive, if ever I have children, I will never do that to them. when he knew from personal experience how much it hurts. I mean, not just the welts, I'm talking about the emotional, the hurt deep inside. He said, I would never want to do that to anybody else. So when he managed to escape from that terrible situation after the Second World War, get settled down and marry my mother, he was the most kind and non-violent father you could ever want. Because my mother was a disciplinarian. My father just couldn't beat the kids. Instead, he was the most compassionate and kind man. What he'd actually learned from the abuse. It was horrendous when he described what happened to him. But instead of revisiting that abuse on my brother and myself, he turned it around, learned from it, and became so kind and so wonderful. So when people say they were abused as a child, either sexually or physically, it does not mean that you too have to be an abuser of others. If you can learn from it, like my father learned from it, to see what it's like, and never want to do that to any other human being, you will actually take that abuse, like the truckloads of dung, and turn it into a beautiful garden, fertilizer for your life. So it's very loving and caring, and that was the reason why. So it was he who said to me, the door of my heart's always open to you, no matter what you ever do. He let me be, he let me go, he didn't try and control me at all. And because he didn't try and control me, because he gave me that freedom, I lived up to that freedom. He didn't actually try and make me a good scholar. Because he gave me such trust, I wanted to be a good son to him, someone he could be proud of. That's why I did well at school. When I say I went to Cambridge, I went just the ordinary, the local primary school, because my parents were poor. It was scholarships all the way. I had no privilege from a wealthy parents. I just won my way all the way to university. And if I became a good man and eventually a good monk, it was because my father let me be. He nurtured me rather than controlled me. He never put on this fast fertilizer which you try and give to your kids to make you grow faster than you should. Just nurtured and let me grow at my own rate. And that's why I love that man very much. And why I learned love, peace, and how that made me grow into who I am now. So I always say that if you do let go, let the loved ones be, they will not get worse because you give them that freedom. They will actually get much better, more wise, learned, much better human beings because you give them that wonderful gift of freedom. It's the same with your loved ones, your husband and wife. If you really put them in a cage, then they will live like a prisoner. You will have no real relationship. But if you give them freedom, if you say, husband, wife, the door of my heart is open to you no matter what you ever do, and you really mean it, if you let them be, let them go, then they'll always be with you to the end of your days. Because who can resist such a very high spiritual, freeing love? It's so rare, you would never throw that away. That's what I found. That's why loving kindness, that type of love, was the same for me as letting go. It was only years later when we had German monks at my monastery, they told me that the German word for love is Liebe. That rang a lot of bells. If the German word for love is Liebe, then where do we get liberality from? Or liberation? Liebe, love, liberality, giving, liberation, freedom, all coming from the same spot. When you practice loving kindness, you are letting go. When you make donations, or even more than that, you forgive someone. You give the benefit of the doubt to another being. You forgive them. Give up your hatred.